Hello everyone, welcome back to Math Mechanics. Today we're going to be dealing with a inverted fork from a 2004 Honda RC51. As you can see, they're leaking pretty bad. So I already took them out of the actual bike, of course, and I did drain the other one and this one. And so from there, you'll see what I'm gonna do. So I like to clean everything as I'm going as well. So just get yourself a drain pan. Clean it all up nice and good. Okay, this is a 32, I believe, or a 30, it's a 32. So you'll loosen that. You'll basically pull this down. You can do it if you have a impact driver. I have a 1/2 inch, one of those Milwaukee ones, got like 1400 breakaway. And you just hold it, crank it loose, and you're good to go. I also like to back out all the adjusters full soft. So that's the preload and the dampener. And so from there, what we're gonna do, pull this down. All right. Pull down your sleeve, which is basically a spacer. You can do that by hand. It's a little tough, but it's not that crazy. They sell tools for this. I made my own, or have my own. I have a Slim Jim here. I cut a slot into it years ago so I could do these. So what you're gonna do is take the thing that you have with a slot, okay? Kind of hard to do this while I'm trying to show everybody. So what you want to do is pull it up and at the same time shove in your spacer. As simple as that. Yeah, so anyways, that's the idea. What I'm gonna do here, I'm grabbing a flathead, going underneath the nut, which is the lock nut. Okay, so lifting it up enough where I can get the spacer underneath. So as you can tell, this part's a whole bunch of fun, especially without that tool. Like I said, tools do make it easier. This is a little bit unorthodox, but it's very possible. Okay. Once you get that spaced, you can see there's two 14s. One is a lock nut for the top, which is the dampener basically in the cap. So I'll show you that right now. Okay. Grab your two 14s. Just crack them loose. There you go. Okay, all it takes. Spin out your dampener in the cap. So this is the dampener valve. So just be really careful with it when you take it out. Set it somewhere where obviously you're not going to hurt it. The directions are a little bit different. They say to keep the valve inside and to remove the cap, the dampening screw and the preload screw, and then leave the valve inside. I choose to do it this way personally. Again, in my opinion, it's all preference. So see, a little bit came out of that dampening outer rod. It's okay. Spacer, doesn't really matter if it gets a little bit beat up. It's not going to hurt anything. You know, of course, if you have the right tools, it's going to be a lot easier on you. So take out your spring, spacer, set them both aside. Okay, take out any remaining fluid. There's probably going to be a little bit because the valve's not in there now. Pump it a little bit. This is just to save yourself all the mess. Okay, from here, it's a pretty important step. Take a little flathead of some kind, be careful when you're doing this, and prop the dust seal back. As you can see, there is a ring inside there. I'll show you what that looks like. So I get new ones when I do it. So that's what the ring looks like. It's set in a groove. So the idea is take your small flathead and just pop it out. And there it is. I did these seals, I don't know, I'd say about 2 years ago or something like that, but I was getting really crazy and having myself a lot of fun doing wheelies. And I also got aftermarket seals when I did it. They weren't OEM, and I never recommend that to anybody. So, you know, it is what it is. Anyways, so that's pretty much most of the battle right there. From here, you're going to take your hand, hold tightly on the bottom of the fork, hold the outer tube, start working it out. There we go. Yeah, be careful when you do it. Shit goes flying. So we have your slider bushing, your guide bushing. Guide bushing's larger. Slider bushing actually goes on the inner tube itself. This is why I remember do this in a work area that you don't mind if things get dirty. Right. So now, move most of this to the floor. Okay. So for me personally, I am not replacing the slide bushings. The copper's okay on the inside. That's what you're going to look for. Mine's a little damaged, but not really that bad, not considerable. It was the same on the other side, and the outside's almost brand new. I replaced these last time. I am replacing the guide bushings, however, and you also have a stop ring. No need to replace that unless somehow you bent it, which you shouldn't. Take your old seal off. Okay. And we're halfway there. So I like to clean off the tube, of course, as well as you can. All right. Clean off the work area a little bit. Got some oil over here. Okay, I like to take a little bit of brake cleaner, spray down the tube. Anything with a high flash so that it kind of just dries really quickly. And also typically I use a microfiber cloth at the end to get all those little imperfections off. Because remember, anything that you get on this is going to really show when it comes to putting the seals back on. It's going to create a lot of room for air, dirt to get in, and those won't seal properly. Just clean it off the brake caliper a little bit in the bottom where it was leaking for last 3 months or so. Okay, I'm going to take off, so I'm going to show you guys a trick I do. So I'm going to take off the old dust seal. Okay. Take the new dust seal, and you have to do this. Take a little bit of the old oil on your finger, coat the inside of the new seal. Okay, just make sure you do that. Okay. Coat it pretty nice. Get your new oil seal. do the exact same thing with that. This comes with a little bit of grease on the inside, but just lube it up anyway. It's not gonna hurt. Okay, now this is important. Personally, I take a little bit of electrical tape. I don't have any masking tape currently. So I take a little bit of this, go around the groove that the slider bushing is going to be sitting in. Because the slider bushing groove will cut and nick the new seal. So you want to make sure you coat that. Okay? So this is the step. Take the dust seal straight down. Be careful on this lip as well. Just keep spinning it. It's not going to hurt anything. Just be gentle with it. New seal goes down first. That's a dust seal. Old dust seal goes on after that. You'll see why in a minute. Okay, new oil seal. The wording, which you'll see, there's like some letters and stuff for the size. That side goes down. So the tapered end will go up towards where the oil will be sealing. Okay, slide that over the top. Get it over that tape all the way down. Okay. Next, we take our stopper ring, and it's the beveled edge down. So get that all the way down. Then we take our new guide bushing, nice and fresh, put that over top, let it sit down there, and then take our old, take the tape off first. Make sure this is tight. You can crimp it up a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. Just make sure that it's not uneven. Take our old slider bushing, slide it right back on. Make sure you wipe everything down again, because that's going to be the last time you'll see this area. Okay. Set this to the side for a moment. Okay. Go back to your outer tube, which we have here. Take a little bit of brake cleaner. Spray the inside, or whatever cleaner you like to use. Doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's clean inside. You don't want any specks of shit. Oil's fine, but you really don't want any dirt or anything larger than a barely, tiny little particle dust. And even that you don't really want, because you'll clog up the valving for the dampener. And there's other little pee holes for bypassing and whatnot. So again, just make sure you get this as clean as you can. Okay, all right. We can clean the outside afterwards, not a big deal. So what we're gonna do, take your inner tube, go of course to the tapered side of this tube. Yeah, it would fall if it's not in there. Okay, cool. So we're all in there. So get it down there nice and snug first, that seal. Okay. So okay, so if you can see this, okay, so we have the old seal, dust seal, new seal. Okay, so that's set in there nice and comfortable. Okay, so that'll happen sometimes. So anyways, once it's even, okay, you can use the other dust seal and smack it in to get it even. And then what I do is I grab a piece of PVC that I cut, which this is a 2-inch piece that I cut down slightly. It's a coupler, by the way, not a tube itself. And then you smack it down with the old dust seal in front. And there you go. She's in its groove, okay? See that? You can see the groove right there where that ring goes in. So then now take our new ring, which they recommend putting this on first. I like to keep it out of the way. Spread it open pretty wide so you don't scratch that tube. Okay. Set one side in, work the other side in, take your small flathead, be careful not to scratch the tube, and it'll sit right in its spot. Make sure it's all in, which it is. Okay. Alright. So now, take my microfiber cloth, wipe it down again, make sure that there's no fingerprints. Okay. Gonna take my small dikes. Be very careful when you're doing this. This does have a little bit of metal in it. Okay. And just work your way through that seal. Remember, be careful not to hurt the tube, because if you nick the tube, that nick will let oil by when it's under a lot of heavier pressure. So just real careful. Again, this isn't too hard, but you do want to be careful. There you go. It's an old dust seal. It's gone. Remember, that's just a little trick. Do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Take the new dust seal, get it on down nice and comfortable. Wipe all that dust that I have off from the manufacturing. Wipe your tube completely clean of any old oil at this time, so that you can see when you put the new oil in if anything's leaking. And again, I like to spray a little bit of brake cleaner on the bottom so I know this should be very dry. And again, it's just a little dirty from when I did it before, or I mean when it was leaking for so long. All right. These cloths will leave a little bit of fiber on the tube. I don't like that. Okay, cool. So just checking for free play. Okay, so now check that everything is moving freely. Okay, you're going to be going up and down. Yeah, nice free play. Cool. All right. So this is a personal thing. Use whatever weight you like. The bike calls for SS8, which is, I believe, 7.5 weight, something like that. Anyways, I get 5 weight. I think it moves better in the dampener. Valving, basically, so it's freer to move and it's more responsive. Again, this is all up to preference. So It takes 16.8 ounces, I do believe. I don't really go too much out of that. I get 2 liters of the 5-weight, and then you need to measure it. It's 135 millimeters from the top when it's all the way at its base. Needs to be pumped. So if you can see what I'm doing here. See how I'm pumping it? And then also, you'll take the dampener rod from down here, pump that up and down so you can fill it up. You'll start seeing it come out of the center of the rod. And then after you do that 5-10 times or so, let it sit for a couple minutes. That'll get all the air bubbles to come to the surface. Okay. Can actually see some of those air bubbles coming up, no? Maybe? So what I do is I set my caliper to 135 millimeters, which it is set to, as you can see. 135. Looks probably like 132 on there. Anyways. And then measure from the top. And just measure until, keep adding a little bit until you get keep adding a little bit until you get a little bit on your end of your caliper. And then you know that it's just dipped into the oil. Pretty straightforward, like I said. If you get a little bit too much, don't worry. You can always take some out. Yeah, see, so I have a little bit too much, but we're gonna check that. And we're gonna do that by moving the dampening rod. Making sure everything is filled. Okay, and we're gonna pump the sleeve a couple times. Okay, and then clean that off, check it again. This is a pivotal part in the process to get that completely accurate, because that will determine on how your ride feels. There we go. Just pour it a little bit out. And we're right about there. Just gonna pour a teeny tiny little bit more out. Okay. And we're right there on the end. You can see that. See, just a tid on the tip. Anyways. So now we get to the very, very difficult part. We take the old spring, put it back in. Be careful, you don't want it to just get thrown down there. It will make a mess. I like to pull the dampening rod all the way up. And then take your spacer and set it right there on top where it belongs. And then this is fun. Well, I've made my own little tool here, a little jig out of metal, because I've read that people make them out of PVC, but I find that the PVC will not hold up. And remember, there's 2 holes in the spacer. So the idea is to take what we have here and thread it into the sides of the spacer, which, I mean, we could do this with it in front of you guys. You see? So you'll be threading these inside ever so slightly. As you can see, my spacer's been beat up a little bit, but like I said, it'll be fine. There you go. Nothing too crazy. Make sure that's clean. It looks like there's something in the bottom. Okay. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because I don't have the, I guess you'd say, easier tool to use. So I use the sleeve that I made. We're gonna put one of those on one side. Let's turn this sideways. Okay. Remember, I did the other one yesterday, so it's not like I don't know how bad this is. So let's get this one on. Okay. Start cranking down slowly. And the trick about this, since I'm not using 2 different ratchets, is you have to center it over and over again. And you want to keep something next to the pipe here so that as you're ratcheting, it's not going to scratch your tube. This, if you have nice tubes, I recommend not doing it this way. Last time I did this, I used a rod through the axle and then used a ratchet on both sides. It was a lot easier. But you use what you got, so. What you hear is the spring moving. This is the cheap way to do this, if there's such a thing. But remember, you have to make this sleeve that I made, you want to make it out of metal. Because if you make it out of PVC, trust me from experience, it's not going to work. Okay, now when I'm as low as I am now, okay, which is almost at the top, what I do is I take this valve, take a set of pliers, okay. Usually I have to pull the dampener rod up a little bit. In this case I didn't, so we got it right on. So what we're gonna do now is very, very, very carefully, okay? Just let it go. Don't let it smack in your face, of course. and then remove the two threaded rods, the eyelets. Just remove them enough to where you're not going to scratch your cap when you're coming out. There you go. And that's how you get it all back together. The last thing is, remember, this is not tight yet. So, you gotta do exactly what you saw me do in the beginning. You know, that really fun thing. Usually I have a helper for this, by the way. Today, of course, I do not. So see, I slipped that underneath. And again, you know, I'm not gonna recommend anybody do it this way. My bike was crashed when I got it. I've always done things the way I can afford to do them personally, and this is my own personal bike, so anyways, get that nice and snug. Slide out your spacer, pull the outer sleeve up, start spinning it on your cap, get that started, and then last but certainly not least, see, I'm using my 1/2-inch Milwaukee. I love this thing. Anyway, it's on a low setting. I don't keep it all crazy high. And just snug it up. It's not going anywhere. And believe me, if it starts to loosen, you'll notice when it's on the front of your bike. Okay, clean the outer tube. Use 2 rags, so obviously your hand doesn't make it all nasty. Clean out the bottom, really nice. Move the tube down a couple times by hand. Check that there's no leaks. Nice and clean. See that? Beautiful. Okay, so that's how you do your fork tube.